Albert Einstein's life was never settled. It was always punctuated with lots of upheavals. Whoever used to get associated with him used to go through similar times. When Albert came to Zurich, his entire family had to relocate there. His family used to stay with him in his flat. There was an addition to his family after a year. He was blessed with his second son. And he had an increment of 1,000 francs in the same year in the form of lecture fees. The best part was that the apartment in which he stayed, Friedrich Adler also stayed there. This made their bond even better, and they used to meet quite often. Einstein was also becoming popular as a teacher. He used new techniques to teach and also to make students attentive. He used to apply fun and laughter in the class. He used to be brief and precise in his class and never believed in giving written notes. He believed in explaining things properly and not in creating rote machines. Besides this, he used to give ample time to his students. He used to be pleased to see students stress-free and happy. His bonding with his students was not just restricted to the classroom. Rather, he used to spend a lot more time with them. He even would go to the cafeteria along with them. He would discuss the universe with them while having a cup of coffee or tea. He used to see his child in them. He remembered all the difficulties he had at the tender age of 15. Hence, he used to help the students a great deal. When the news was spread that Einstein was leaving them for Prague, the students were really worried, and so was Friedrich Adler, who even wrote a letter to his father in this connection. Einstein broke his silence after a week. He announced to everyone that he was considering going to German University of Prague. The reasons behind Einstein going to Prague were very weird. He wanted to go there because there were big buildings, beautiful gardens, and well-decorated churches. The presence of famous astronomer Tycho Brahe was another reason. Kepler worked with him. He explained the movement of the astronomical figures, but Einstein, apparently, did not know about the fact that the local population and German government were at war, and there were only 2 universities over there. One of the 2 was known as German University and the other as Czech University. Both were established in the year 1888. It had a big population of Jews. The political scene was extremely murky at that time, and there was another candidate to compete with him. Though Einstein was selected in the end, this raked up a new issue. The emperor of that palace had a lot of power with regards to selection. He used to give his final approval after getting a green signal from a valid church. It is quite a common thing for you and me who believe in God, but too difficult a pill to swallow for someone like Einstein. Because of his atheism, he lagged behind, despite staying ahead in the appointment race. He was really sad about this outcome. But fortune smiled again, and he got appointed in the year 1911. He got access to new techniques and new facilities. Even his relations at the home front improved. The reason behind it was he could now hire a nanny, which he could afford with his decent salary. He got to see new and surprising things because of huge Jew population. It was easier for him to make friends. He could meet the intellectuals quite often, including Madame Curie. He even used to discuss serious matters with engineers. It is sheer destiny that though he could not become an engineer, which his father wanted, but he graduated to a level where he could advise engineers. This period was very significant from scientific point of view. Niels Bohr, Rutherford, and Planck were busy taking many theories forward. These scientists inhabited a world of their own, and they had nothing to do with the political factions. Even though the Nobel Prize was already introduced, none of these were its contenders. In the meanwhile, even Einstein was lost in his research. To know what he discovered and the difficulties he faced at this stage, please stay tuned to the biography of Einstein. Einstein's life and smooth things never went together, which all of you must already have seen. He decided in the year 1914 that he would research the theory of gravity a little further. He was waiting for a solar eclipse for this. This was expected to happen during the summer. A group of people were gathered for this, which comprised of many astronomers. But all these great people chose a wrong time for this experiment. Germany was gearing up for World War. Hence, the officials of Berlin did not want to give time or money for the same. Despite all this, they permitted the scientists to go to Russia at their expense. Despite this assistance, the problem of funds was still very much there. Lot of efforts were made to collect money, but pooling funds was very difficult for these poor scientists. Again, Einstein's fortune favored him. Germany started taking interest in this quest all of a sudden. Germany felt if they had scientists like Einstein in their ranks, it will make things easy on the war front. Hence, they offered Einstein to come to Berlin at double the salary. He accepted this offer on 7th December 1913. He shifted to Berlin in the year 1914, and just see the turn of events. The place he left 17 years back, he came back to the same place, but this time to touch new heights. He started searching for new opportunities there, but the issue of citizenship cropped up. He came to Berlin in the lure of a fatter salary, but he did not want to leave the citizenship. Around that time, a new rule was passed in Germany that if a foreigner worked in the government service, he would immediately get German citizenship. Einstein started living in a rented flat in Berlin and gave his first lecture in 1914. He used to go to the office like any other working man. There was a library in his office. His working style was also unique. When he was asked what he needed for his work, he said he just needed a paper and pencil, and also said he wanted time to do things alone. He also made it clear that he will not interfere in anyone's work. Now, he observed that during that time, the government in power had an increasing influence on science. He prayed along with everyone for peace, but the peace at his home was about to get disrupted. The relationship between him and his wife was always delicate from the very beginning, but her anger reached its peak in the year 1914, and she decided that she would return to Switzerland with her two sons. 2 days after her return to Switzerland, Germany declared war against Russia, and 2 days later it declared war against France too. The moment Germany entered Belgium, Britain declared war against Germany. Seeing the gravity of the situation, Einstein kept his dream to go to Russia under control. The astronomers who were there in the group were imprisoned in Russia. Even their equipment was confiscated. The scientists who went to see the eclipse went through a torrid time in prison. Long discussions with the Russian top officials followed, and finally they were released in the month of September. They all belonged to different places, hence they were appointed as emergency officials, and they started to assist Einstein in his research. He and his wife stayed in different countries because of war, but they did not seem to be bothered about each other. He used to spend most of the time with his friends, and he also celebrated Christmas like that. His friends sympathized with him for his personal life, but also felt that he could peacefully concentrate on his work now. Einstein loved both of his sons a lot, and he really missed them, especially in the Christmas of 1914. At this time, his elder son was 10 years old and the younger son was 6 years of age. He really wished that the war situation or the family problems should not affect his sons, and they should not face any difficulties. But due to the war, the relations between Germany and Switzerland were very broken. He realized he was badly stuck. Neither was he able to concentrate on his work, nor could he take care of his family. He realized an extremely important thing in this period. He could no longer remain aloof from society. He was against war too. There were lots of scientists who genuinely wanted to do something for their country to prove their patriotism. He started looking for those scientists who were against the war and who did not have any particular love for the country. Entire Berlin was mired in the war while he was busy sermonizing people about humanity. To remove his thought and to make him part of the war, his friends put in a lot of effort, but all these efforts went in vain as he just did not budge even an inch. In fact, he was preparing for a greater war, a war to win his wife's heart back. Till this point, both communicated only through letters, and he felt he may turn out to be unsuccessful on the family front. Albert Einstein was completely against the violence that prevailed in Europe, and he even proposed world peace. He was made a member of a political party in November 1914, which had the vision of creating a situation which would eliminate war. He met famous writer Romeo Rollo in 1915. He was really impressed with Einstein and wrote at length about him in his diary. Swiss government accepted the proposition on world peace with open arms. Einstein's Swiss citizenship turned out to be handy now. He could easily visit the neutral countries. Cashing on in this, he first met his wife in Zurich in 1916. Then he visited Holland on the invitation of Lawrence officials. He had a long chat about the World War. On his return to Berlin, he met one of his old friends, Adler, who was also against the war. Adler was always passionate about politics. Once he even killed the Prime Minister after being denied a meeting. He was imprisoned for 8 months for this. Then he was kept in a fort where he started studying science and stayed in touch with Einstein through letters. It was all right up till now, but the real story of struggle started at this point. The very war that Einstein was dead against was all set to change the course of his life. Which change, of course, are we talking about shall be revealed soon in the next episode. Please stay tuned to Cuckoo FM. Einstein was about to enter the toughest phase of his life, both on a personal and professional front. Einstein's family was on the verge of being ruined. When he went to meet his wife Mileva in 1916 during Easter, his wife and Einstein had such an ugly fight that both decided not to see each other's face ever again. He had a nervous breakdown and he'd developed a certain disease in his liver too. The reason behind it could be the fact that he was living alone and uncared for. His friends were really worried to see his condition and got him tested. After a thorough examination, it was revealed that he did not suffer from cancer, but the disease spread throughout his body. Doctors felt that he was using his brain far too much, and that may have also been the reason behind this disease. Apart from his research, he was also preoccupied by thoughts of war, as a result of which he started doing weird things, and his brain was known to do peculiar things anyway. Now he constantly thought about the universe, and even his body stopped following any rules or patterns. He only slept when he was forced to sleep, and he used to wake up only when he was forcibly woken up. On one hand, Germany was on a march to war, and on the other hand, Einstein was on a march of his health going downhill. He lost 24 kilos in a span of 2 months. Hence, his body was slowly stopping to cooperate with him. He had a girlfriend during this time who asked him if he was scared of death, to which he replied rather dramatically that it was very much a part of every human life and he was not at all worried about how his life ends. Around this time, his mother came to stay with him to spend her last few days. When she passed away, people saw Einstein cry inconsolably for the first time. Everyone was of the opinion that he had nothing to do with societal norms, for he was not worried about his sons or his wife even when he fell so ill. The silver lining during this phase of illness was that he got close to one of his cousins, Elsa. Elsa was married once but got separated from her husband. Elsa and Mileva were very different from one another. While Mileva was very much interested in science and was well informed, Elsa was a very simple girl and had limited knowledge and hobbies. She took complete care of Einstein during his illness. Einstein realized that he would be better off staying away from the war ambience and started living in Switzerland. During this time, he did not meet his wife, but he regularly sent 7,000 marks for her maintenance. When the World War ended, so did Einstein's marriage. In 1918, he sent a divorce notice to Mileva, and around this time, there was a lot of talk about his candidature for Nobel Prize. The Nobel laureates were given 30,000 Swiss kroners back then. He got to know through his Dutch friends that the scientists who were about to make experimental research on his theories during the eclipse were very knowledgeable and had a pearl of good worldly wisdom. American scientists joining in, the scales tilted in its favor, while the internal political state in Germany was getting worse. Hence, his scientist friends kept themselves away from anything related to war. A few were forced to work in low-paying jobs at low positions. Einstein's fame was spread very far, and all British scientists, along with Eddington, were planning for the experimental test of Einstein's theory. The theory of relativity was under test during the solar eclipse in 1919. Einstein's fame was spread very far, and all British scientists, along with Eddington, were planning for the experimental test of Einstein's theory of relativity during the solar eclipse in 1919. Einstein's hypothesis about the universe was being read everywhere. The research about the creation of universe, its development, was going on in the right, earnest way. Germany faced its first defeat at this time. And to know about how it affected Einstein and what problems it led to, keep listening to the biography of Einstein on Cuckoo FM. German-born Einstein often forgot his country of birth. He very seldom mentioned it during discussions. He felt as though the entire universe was his home. After its first loss in 1918, Germany was on the brink of acute levels of malnutrition and poverty. Einstein had good terms with the Allies, and he was disappointed with them because he felt they were basking in the glory of their victory, which led to this behavior of them. At the end of this year, he had the opportunity to go to Zurich, where he gave a lecture at YTH University. He came back to Berlin in 1919. Einstein conveyed his assent to divorce on 14th of February 1919. He had already declared much in advance that if he received a Nobel Prize, he would give it to Mileva. When he finally received the Nobel Prize, 3 years later, he gifted a luxurious building to Mileva in Zurich. A point to be noted here is that when Einstein and his wife stayed together, they used to fight every day. And post their separation, their fights almost vanished. Mileva did not change her surname after marriage. She even advised Einstein to remarry. She had the knowledge of the growing bond between Elsa and Einstein, but she had no objection to it. Around this time, the anti-Jew movement gained momentum, and Einstein received a lot of invitations from different countries. He also started accepting them and went on tours. He was not comfortable with his humongous popularity. Wherever he went for a lecture, huge audience used to gather. Some artists even used to draw his portrait while he delivered a lecture. An interesting thing that happened during this time, where an English artist wanted Einstein's signature on the portrait that he had made, but Einstein flatly denied for the simple reason that he just did not like it at all. Apart from these benefits, his personal life was also going on well. He could not remember anything. Elsa religiously packed all relevant things at a place. Despite this, he used to forget something or the other. Come to think of it, the person who came up with formulae that students find extremely tough to remember was forgetful himself. The anti-Jew movement was well and truly settled by this time. And to counter it, Einstein started working at Hebrew University. It was easy to take responsibility, but extremely difficult to complete it. He was completely immersed in pooling funds for the same. He decided to deliver a special lecture in America, which would enable to pool the required funds. His luck was on his side, and probably the Almighty also wanted this noble work to take shape. He received an invitation from America too, but he forgot an important thing here: his poor English. He proposed that he would speak in German. Despite the war situation, America agreed with his proposal, and this was because of his growing popularity in the world of science. He could come to America because of his increasing influence, but some changes in his behavior were noticed. He started being very cautious during his stay in America and was often found in the company of Jewish students with whom he used to talk about his university. He was very confident about university and said it will come out to be one of the most sought-after universities in the world. He even went to England and was given the title of Doctor of Science. He was happy to see his career going in the right direction. Haldane was his host in London, who had special interest in Germany and was also curious to meet Einstein. He met senior scientists there, such as Eddington and J.J. Thomas. Post-war, his tours were akin to traveling in Shatabdi Express. Haldane reportedly used to introduce Einstein as someone to whom Britain was grateful to wherever he went. Initially, there was apprehension about some resistance against Einstein purely because of his being German, but all these apprehensions went out of the window the moment he started his lectures. Many newspapers attended and covered his full lecture. When he returned to Germany, he was known as someone who stomped his authority in the winning countries of the First World War. In the meanwhile, there were strong attempts to revive Germany. He participated in a party held on 1st July 1923 and mentioned the difference in nature between US and British scientists. Despite being bestowed upon with so many honors, there was not the slightest arrogance in him. He still behaved just the way he did before receiving these accolades. At times, he used to forget that he was not an ordinary scientist. He was the world-famous one. He used to take most things lightly. He had to pay a heavy price when during the German Records Party, he said that Brits were pro-Germany and Americans were anti-German. He never knew such a small throwaway line would create such a big controversy across the world. This statement became the first page headline in New York Times. This was nothing less than a bomb. Americans condemned his statement. Einstein's friends tried their best to deny it, but the media houses were in no mood to heed anything. Einstein was projected as anti-American. Some media houses even declared that he would never be forgiven for this statement, and he insulted all his American hosts. Some even said that Einstein was ill-mannered. But Einstein did not lose his sense of balance. He could realize that all of this is media created, and the situation arose out of the media's habit of blowing things out of proportion. To know about how he saved himself from the media bashing and maintained his status, stay tuned and keep listening to the biography of Einstein on Cuckoo FM. Einstein's words created a huge controversy and Americans were miffed with him, but Einstein was not perturbed by all of this. He kept trying to develop science with the Allies. He went to France in 1922. He received the invitation in 1913 itself, but he could not make it because of the war. On receiving the invitation again, when he visited the country, there were a lot of apprehensions. People felt that the French may oppose Einstein because of his German genes, but they were proved wrong. The French Prime Minister was even more excited about Einstein's France visit than Einstein himself. He never had any problems there, and even in Germany, the high and mighty used to respect Einstein. He went to Belgium after returning from France. He started charming the literature and the scientists simultaneously. His appearance was also in discussion, and people started enjoying his philosophical thoughts too. He started to draw comparisons between the theory of relativity and philosophy also. But beneath this facade of respect, there were lots of enemies. He faced opposition during one of his lectures in France for not taking part in Germany's League of Nations. Around 30 people decided to leave his lecture midway. Even the French media looked divided. The French lost a lot more compared to the Brits, and such scars were still fresh. French lost around 13,50,000 lives, and Einstein realized this somewhere down the line. Hence, he made it a point to visit the place where the war was fought at the fag end of his France tour. He could realize what a cruel attack Germany launched on France. Villages were destroyed, and there were pits all around. Even many forests were destroyed. He was simply moved by this sight. He visited all such similar places and was absolutely speechless to narrate his experience. Meanwhile, people started making a movie on his relativity theory, but before the movie could succeed, he again stirred up a controversy with another utterance. He told the media that he had no role to play in the movie and he was not convinced about the title. But the movie did complete successfully and was shown in various different countries of the world. After his French tour, he was flooded with invitations, but around this time, one of his friends, Rathe, was murdered by terrorists on the 24th of June 1922. And this was for the simple reason that he was a Jew. The opposition against the Jews was quite strong even before his murder. His death, however, drew a clear demarcating line. The schools, colleges, and other workplaces were ordered to be closed, but some deliberately opened their offices. People in Germany realized that even Einstein was a Jew. Hence, they felt he could be the murderer's next target. This almost held true. A German was hired to kill Einstein. He was subsequently caught but let free after a small fine. This made it very clear that the lives of Jews just did not matter. His fellow scientists felt Jews should be eliminated from the world to ensure that it moves on the right path. Einstein started smelling danger and he accepted most of the invitations he received. He even wrote in a letter to Madame Curie that he no longer felt safe staying in Berlin. On one hand, he was rather scared of his death, but on the other hand, the rebel in him was also kicking hard. He said that he was prepared for all sorts of contingencies. Whenever he received an invitation for a lecture, his opposition parties would become extremely active, forcing him to cancel the lecture. This was the situation in 1922. A Nobel Prize announcement was also made in the same year, which also became a subject of discussion. A scientist wrote a letter to the Swedish Nobel Academy demanding how come Einstein was unnecessarily getting so much fame. Both the Germans and Swiss declared Einstein as their own citizen, which again created a controversy as to which country's ambassadors would be asked to accompany him at the time of conferring the award on him. This led to accusations and counter-accusations, and it was a significant thing because the Swede king himself used to give the royal bouquet. Hence, both countries started working on proving that he belonged to them. Because of this controversy, Einstein could not receive the award, and the German royal ambassador received it on his behalf on the 11th of December. He then handed it over to Einstein on his return to Berlin. The controversy about his citizenship went on for a long time. The science minister of Germany announced that whoever was in government service had to be German. Hence, he was a German citizen with effect from 1914. He had no option but to accept that because he was a very simple, straightforward man. He was not capable of doing witty things. When he was bribed for change of citizenship, he was startled by it, and he laid his dream of change of his citizenship to rest. The situation of professors, including that of Einstein, was getting terrible by the day. Many had wage cuts too. How did he deal with this new situation? Keep listening to the biography of Albert Einstein on Cuckoo FM. Einstein was really concerned about the situations prevailing in Germany and the condition of Jews over there. But he vowed to free the motherland of Jews. This area was known as Philistine back then. He wanted to stitch the entire world together. He wanted harmony and cordiality among all. There were faint political aspirations in his heart, but Madame Curie asked him to be restricted to science only. A lot of people were using Albert's name for their political ends. Some rich Jews used to remit a lot of money to Iran, and a few deliberately created fights, but Einstein was not perturbed by all of it. Around this time, Germany was saddled with another issue. It was the financial position of the Germans. The entire world went through depression. Every other person was worried about his financial position. Every German professor was working at 20% of the pre-war wages. The scientists' summit also got reduced because it would have strained their pockets. But Einstein's situation was completely different from others. Where other professors were finding it tough to make ends meet, Einstein was making big money in the form of royalties on the books he wrote. He organized his life to a great extent, in which his wife Elsa had a big role to play. He used to stay in his Berlin residence, which was not small like the ones owned by other scientists. Rather, it was a pretty luxurious one. He loved spending most of his time in his study, which had a round table and an almirah. There used to be his notes, papers, and pencils in the almirah. He loved cigars, a habit his wife wanted him to quit, but he stealthily took his cigar box hidden in his book to his study. He used to spend most of his evening in his study room. He framed certain rules for his room, as no one was allowed inside it, not even his wife. Any cleaning or any organization of things in this room was absolutely not allowed. Every year, a lot of research papers and write-ups were written on his books. His book had 14 revised editions with a sale of 65,000 copies, which was monumental. The English version of his book also had huge sales in US. His theory of relativity was the subject of discussion everywhere, and people started concurring with him. Einstein helped people in many ways, such as applying for jobs for students. All this improved his image among the masses. Everyone believed that he was a kind-hearted man, and a lot of students used to come to him, seeking his help. Big industrialists also were impressed with Einstein and believed that he could help them immensely. Dr. Bosch gave Einstein a reason for further research so that he could continue his research work. To know about how he started working in the research lab and how he met an Indian researcher, please stay tuned and keep listening to the biography of